Welcome. We are broadcasting live from the mothership. You are tuned in and listening to Starseed Energy Radio with your host Jonah Bolt. Starseed Energy Radio, where you can always tune in to hear the colors and see the music. Starseed Energy Radio goes live in 3,
Hello?
2, 1.
Hello?
Mute your mic.
Hi, can you hear me okay? Hello?
Welcome to the show. You're listening to Starseed Radio. Thanks for tuning in. It's time to hear the colors and see the music. And we have an awesome show lined up for you today and lots of news to cover. Today's the first of the month. It's September 1st, 2015. I am your host, Jonah Bolt, the Octorian Starseed. We've had some amazing movement in the net zero and energy world. I know a lot of people have been contacting us from all over the world, and we thank you. We'll go back to everyone as soon as we can. We've been inundated with calls, so it's real exciting. We're going to be joined by a very special guest who's been on the show before, but we love having him on because he's so knowledgeable, not just about music, but also about many other topics and subjects that we love to talk about: metaphysics, frequencies, sound. Julian Forest will be joining us in the show. First, we're going to get started with our daily download with Ryan Matthew Dernick. We're going to cover today's and also updates from all over the world and news and also some past stories. But first, we're going to start the show off with our daily quote. And the daily quote goes, "Do not grow old, no matter how long you live. Never cease to stand like curious children before the great mystery into which we were born." That quote, one of our favorites, Albert Einstein. I'll post that up on starseedradio.com. And also, if you still have not gotten a free piece of Elite Shungite, please give us a call toll free at 888-400-2328 for your free piece of Elite Shungite. Or you can go to starseedtechnologies.com and fill out one of our forms. I would love to send you information on our free energy devices, as well as about 15 PDFs talking about all different types of new energy systems and stuff like that. So please contact us at starseedtechnologies.com anytime during the day, 24/7. If someone doesn't get back to you, we will right away. With that, we're going to welcome Ryan Matthew Dernick to the show to start the daily download. Ryan, how are you doing today?
Very well, Jonah. How you doing?
Doing good, thank you. Let's get started with the daily download. I know the markets are going crazy and lots of movement things happen. We had another explosion in China.
Yep.
Very interesting stuff happening. I wanted to start off with a very interesting article, Ryan. This one is "Scientists Delete HIV Virus from Human DNA for the First Time." That is right. Scientists have found a way to delete the HIV virus from our human DNA for the first time. This is an amazing, amazing breakthrough. The functional HIV cure stepped closer to reality with FDA approval of clinical human trials. Huge news. The FDA is actually going to allow them to test on humans eradicating cancer. So this is really, really big news. I'm going to post the article up. That's from medicaldaily.com. And the other article I saw is on dailymail.co. So those two articles are groundbreaking, amazing movements we're having on planet Earth. What else is happening in the planet around the world, Ryan? Give us a download.
Regards to solar activity is on the going down and waning. We're only going to have a possibility of a 70% chance of polar geomagnetic storms, and this is predominantly due to we're crossing an area called a solar sector boundary, which is a fold in the heliospheric, which is the sun current sheet. So that would be good for northern sky watchers to see any kind of aurora borealis. In regards to earthquake activity, there was just recently a 5.4 magnitude earthquake 104 kilometers east-northeast of Iquique, Chile, a 5.6 magnitude earthquake 273 kilometers southeast of Haichicho, Jima, Japan, a 5.1 magnitude earthquake 176 kilometers northwest of New Caledonia, a 4.9 magnitude earthquake 47 kilometers east of Severo-Kurilsk, Russia, a 4.6 magnitude earthquake southwest of Chiravanga in the Solomon Islands, and a 4.7 magnitude earthquake 21 kilometers northwest of Murgab, Tajikistan. Now, I could cover a lot more earthquakes, but as we know, there's a lot of earthquakes going on. I'm just covering the ones that are definitely possible damaging to structures and disrupting people's lives. In regards to other news that came out recently, California's earthquake problem, people aren't that afraid. Why? Well, in a recent study, they showed that only 10% of Californians actually have earthquake insurance. So in the event, which it will happen, that there's either a earthquake in the Hayward Fault, which goes through the San Francisco Bay, or the San Andreas, or even not in California, but off the Cascadia subduction zone, a Juan de Fuca plate offshore that goes for about 800 miles from British Columbia down to northern coast of Mendocino, California. There's going to be a lot of losses that won't be covered because a lot of those people don't have earthquake insurance. And in atmospheric goings-on, there's a lot of cyclone activity going on. As we know, yesterday was historic because they had a hurricane, the first ever to actually directly impact the islands of the Cape Verde Islands off the west coast of Africa. And now it's since weakened a little bit. It's up to 50 miles an hour. It's Tropical Storm Fred, and it's going to be a fish storm pretty much. It might recurve and go toward the Azores or toward the Canary Islands over the next 96 to 120 hours or 5 days plus. In other activity in the Pacific, Hurricane Jimena, again, is only a problem for shipping interests right now. It is a major hurricane, has winds of 120. And it's in the central Atlantic. Then Hurricane Ignacio is passing well north of the Hawaiian Islands. All they're getting right now, and it's a Category 1, all they're getting really is large swells from the open ocean out of the north and northeast. And so they'll be on the range of anywhere from 10 to 20 foot at the at standout beaches. Tropical Depression 14E is formed closer to the Baja Peninsula and is progged to become a minimal tropical storm and then recurve and hit the central Baja California area in the next 5 days or so. And Hurricane Kilo has now passed the international dateline as it goes and heads. Some of the models have this possibly impacting Japan. That, as I said before in the last couple of broadcasts, it's been a gangbuster year because of the El Nino, because it heats the central Pacific and points westward. So, and now that we're seeing a strengthening system, it's now Typhoon Kilo, and it will become another. It's a major hurricane now, but is progged to become a formidable hurricane in the next 5 days, with winds sustained 145 with gusts to 175. Now, on to other news. Sadly, in Dominica, we talked about yesterday with the flooding rains from tropical storms. Now, nothing more than just a little rains going up the northeastern seaboard of the United States that affected the Caribbean. In Dominica, the death toll is up to 25 from flooding rains that caused flash flooding in the area, and they're missing 50 other people that they can't account for right now. And nicely, the Sandals Foundation is launching a fundraising campaign, and this is the non-for-profit arm of the Sandals Resort that's down in the Caribbean and around other parts of the world. Now, firefighters have gotten cooler temperatures Monday, which helped firefighters batting a series of big blazes throughout many of the western states in the U.S. And so that's some good news, as we've had about 4 deaths or so from firefighters over this summer trying to battle these intense blazes that they're saying are the most prolific they've seen for this 2015 fire season so far. And on to news that we were talking about yesterday in regards to the USDA, Department of Agriculture, being sued. Why are they being sued? Well, because they withheld information about GMOs and problems with the GMOs, and they're being sued by a activist group. The lawsuit brought by the Center for Food Safety, and people got to keep in mind, why would they be hiding this information in the first place? Well, let's look at the history of the USDA and who's in charge over there. Well, Tom Vilsack, he used to be a governor of Iowa, and after Obama was elected for his first term, he appointed him to be the USDA head. So who does he also lobby for? Oh, he lobbies for Monsanto's. So we could see why they want to cover up that information, couldn't we, Jonah? Because frankly, they're in cahoots with Monsanto's, and most people don't realize that a lot of the people appointed by Obama in certain sectors from USDA
and
to
bankers,
FDA and bankers are lobbyists for Monsanto's, which I'm sure they're standing to make a lot of profits. And the fact that those GMOs will lower or increase mortality rates, which means kill more people off, and lower populations hopefully in the future, which I'm sure the globalists would really love. And also recently, yesterday, Chipotle is being sued over what? oh, I don't know if you've been to Chipotle recently, but they say, hey, we're GMO free. Well, someone in California didn't think they were, and they think they're lying. No, Chipotle wouldn't lie. They're giving us a affordable, safe product. I'm sure they are, and also who's involved with the GMO pushing of GMO foods? Subway, which Jared Fogle used to be their spokesperson, but since has been ousted as a pedophile and will be going to jail soon to probably get some jail justice. I'm sure that people
or he can go visit the island of our good friend down in the Virgin Islands, the other pedophile
Jerry
king,
Epstein, yes.
Mr. Jerry Epstein, one of our favorite Game of Thrones people.
Yeah. And so basically, it's showing that in the United States, the GMOs reign supreme. And along with what I was saying about Subway has the largest concentrations of antibiotics in their meats. So I'll change the Subway slogan to not Subway eat fresh, Subway eat death. So on to other news.
Wow, I did not know. That's wow,
gross. Yes,
unbelievable.
And so in Latvia, Greece, Germany, and many other countries throughout Europe, they are able to oust and have a right, which we have a greater constitution in terms to those countries in the European Union, but we cannot get these lobbyists and GMO foods and crops out of our country. But yet countries in in Europe, in the European Union, as well as Greece, which has been in and out of bankruptcy.
Over 70 countries have told Monsanto, as an example, to go stick it.
Stick their GMOs.
Meanwhile, Obama, through the ex-president of Monsanto, is now in charge of our FDA. Go figure that one out.
Go figure. Yes, and then the GMO soy accumulates carcinogenic formaldehyde, which can lead to what? To cancer, as among other things, and also there's toxic dyes, as we know in our workout uniforms and things like that. When you sweat, you absorb it through the largest organ of your body, which is your skin. And on to international news. Turkey arrests Vice News journalists. I don't know if you heard about this, Jonah. They arrested them because on bogus terrorist charges. They arrested them because they were covering mounting Kurdish insurgencies in the country's southeast area. People don't realize this. Maybe you do, but Turkey has had a long-standing animosity, and they could care less about the Kurds. That's true right there. You can do the research on your own. But right now, 3 individuals from Vice News are on terrorist-related charges after being detained. But 4 nationals as covered mounting Kurdish insurgency in the country's southeast area.
I just want to say, I love Vice Media. I watch them all the time, Ryan. You
Yes.
know that. They're documentaries. They're on the front line. These guys, I've seen them almost get killed numerous times reporting on stuff because they're out there on the forefront, and I really give props to them. Even though Shane, whatever his name is, sold out, I think, to Fox News.
Yeah.
And then you see him flying on Air Force One, the president. That's how the elite do it. Oh, yeah, we'll offer you $500 million, and some people get tainted. So I love Vice News. I don't like them being sold to mainstream media, which now gives them a chance to be filtered and edited. But Vice people, please check out Vice News. They're really on the forefront of a lot of major stories. I still support them, even though they got sold out. We'll see where the direction of Vice goes. That just happened, this year. But they're amazing, and I really give props and send a lot of light and love and blessings to those reporters.
Definitely.
Because they're in the front lines, man. They're embedded with ISIS. They're embedded with all these, putting their lives on the line to get us the real story. And I give props to that because not many people would do what they would do.
And speaking of ISIS, they bombed another historic ancient ruin in Palmyra, the Bell Temple. Yes, and don't worry though, they're jihadists. They're part of a religious fanatical war. So they not only bombed them, but then they sold the antiquities to make some money. So that sounds like some really religious, spiritually guided people being guided by some kind of I don't know. I wouldn't follow that energy, but that's what they're following.
And we're going to wrap it up there with the Daily Download. I want to end on one article. I'm going to post this up on starseedradio.com. And this one is 7 Unexpected Benefits of Sleeping Naked, backed by research. And this is an awesome article. It talks about how signs of aging will look different. You'll feel happier, more stress-free. You'll get better sleep quality. You'll lower your cortisol levels and maintain healthy body composition. it also boosts your immune system. This is backed by some really good studies too, and also you'll increase your vitality. So I'm going to post this up, and all these articles that Ryan talks about on bellwetherpost.com and Starseed. And let's go over our Game of Thrones person of the day. Oh, go ahead. What do you got?
Game of Thrones person of the day, and I have one more thing to say after that, is Obama, because most people don't realize this. He's the largest lobbyist for Monsanto. I wonder who bankrolled his campaign.
Yes.
All right. Yes. But everyone, keep in mind that it's going to be a bumpy week ahead. September's looking at very, very stormy, economically speaking, globally, as China is dumping U.S. Treasury bonds. Hey, so they're flooding the market and they're getting rid of U.S. debt. I can only see that it's going to keep going down. And right now it's in correction mode still. It was down 400 points at the most, and it's down almost 400 points right now in the Dow Jones. And Japan took a big hit. They're down about 730 points. So I appreciate you getting me on the airs, Jonah. And you have a wonderful
Ryan.
show.
Absolutely. So the Game of Thrones person today officially is Mr. Obama himself, and we'll post up some good memes of how Obama and why Obama is the Game of Thrones person of the day. That's very easily for us to argue that case. But thank you, Ryan, bellwetherpost.com.
Thank you. Knowledge is power. Thank you.
That's it. And with that, we're going to jump to our special guest of the show, an amazing, enlightened, really talented individual that's not just about making music, but is about making a movement towards sustainability, towards a harmonizing society using his sound and frequency and just his knowledge of that. We're going to get into that. So with that, we're going to welcome Julian Forest to the show. Julian, how are you today, Star Brother?
Hey, it's so great to be here. I love to be with you on this show here. It's amazing, and things are happening all over. And as you mentioned, sustainability. I always like to mention J. Gabriel Cavazos and Charles Gilchrist and RK2. I've been working with them for several years now, and we have these amazing powwows and talk about different things and consult on projects together. Really love those two. And, basically, there's a lot of great things happening, and I'm changing up what I'm doing a bit. I have left where I was living before, and I've moved to Sedona, and I'm really enjoying it here. I really love it.
Excellent. Well, Julian, if you would give us a download, a little bit on your history, on where you're at with the music and how you first got into that. When was your first awakening? Have you always been on a spiritual path? When did you first learn about sound vibrations? Give us a little background history for the listeners that aren't familiar with you and your path and how you got to where you're at now, making amazing music and getting these frequencies and resonance. We'll talk about that after the next commercial break. But for right now, give us a download on your personal journey, if you would, please.
Sure. I'll give you kind of a beginning point, and what it really was is I realized as a small child that things just weren't quite the way they seem. It's funny as heck to me sometimes. I tell people, but sometimes as a kid I would look up at adults and I'd see them talking, and I would know that they were just mouthing things that they were conditioned to say, even if I didn't have the language. They were just repeating what they were told, and I saw it very clearly. I said, wait a minute, I don't necessarily need to just listen to what the adults are telling me. So my self-direction started very, very early before I could really verbalize it. So all through my life, I kept going through this thing where I had some mystical experiences, and I'd be transported to celestial planes and hear celestial music. I had other kinds of mystical experiences, and I had precognitive dreams where I would actually literally have a dream that would happen. And instead of just saying, oh, wow, that's weird, I did something else. I said, wait, things are not the way they seem in time and space. I have proof because these are blatant precognitive dreams. So I wanted to tune into that and develop it. And so it also helped me to understand some memories that came to me later and things and so on and so forth. So at a certain point in my life, being very passionate about and loving music and having heard celestial music, I finally acquired a musical instrument. It was a long, hard process. I first mastered the hard rock electric guitar, but it's because I wanted to learn flamenco and classical music that I picked the guitar up. But eventually I studied music theory, and as I got to that point where I became a good classical musician, right about that time I started delving more and more in trying to figure out what the truth was about reality. So that included studying all the world's religions, philosophies, and then the rabbit hole just kept going deeper and deeper and turned into Pythagoras, Kabbalah, sacred geometry. I was calling it harmonic proportion. before that term was current. And that's kind of the path that led me to that. It came from upward down, if I were to put it simply. I heard the celestial music first, and then went on a path of eventually trying to figure out how to simulate and bring it down to the earth.
When you talk about celestial music and these celestial sounds, give us a better explanation, if you can, for the listeners out there, the teenagers out there. What is celestial music? What does that mean to someone that hears that term, celestial music? What type of vibration is that? If you could explain that a little, that'd be very helpful.
Sure, absolutely. It's going to sound kind of lateral, but I remember, for example, seeing a movie and hearing green sleeves, which most people have heard at some point or could look up really easily. But it was done in like a very Renaissance period type way in a movie, and it just sent me off into a little trance. And it was reminding me of those celestial planes, like a little bit of that had wafted down. Or Scarborough Fair by Simon and Garfunkel has a little bit of that element in a way. Vivaldi's Four Seasons has some kind of celestial aspects. But this is something brand new and different, and what it is it transports people into altered states of consciousness on a regular basis. Every time I do a sound healing, people say that they see light and geometry, or they saw angels, or that they went on an astral trip. And so it's carrying the resonance of something that's beyond the earth that's incredibly beautiful. It's the realm of the high poets and some of the world's greatest art. And that is something that I've learned to actually bring down even more than classical music in general, because I've made it so that the tones are resonating in such a way that they're transportive and consciousness altering.
Now, when you take this celestial music and you play it on a radio or play it on a CD player or a Walkman, what does celestial music do to the human in terms of hearing these sounds of vibrations? Does it activate DNA? Does it induct calmness? Does it help with stress? What type of physical or emotional states can people expect when they hear celestial music?
No, that's a really good way to put it. It can do any and all of the above. And the biggest effect is that there's a really great artist named Aeoli. He's been around for about 30 years and is considered to be one of the pioneers of what people call New Age music. And he's got a very transcendental vibration himself, and he's a good friend of mine. He actually did the artwork for my last CD. And what it is that with intent being transmitted from a higher place, intent gets transmitted in art. And so that's part of it, is the intent. But then also, too, there's a thing happening where I can hear all the subtle harmonics to infinity inside of a note or a string, where most people are just hearing a note. And because I can hear them, I play on those, and I'm resonating all the air, or even if it's coming through a sound system, on a CD or the radio or whatever. They can feel that those harmonics are being played upon by pitch bending and so on and so forth in subtle ways, where the cascades inside there, they can't hear them, but they can feel them. And so it raises people's whole consciousness, and as Aeoli explained it, it causes all the chakras to line up in sonic bliss. And so when everyone's chakras become harmonized and their consciousness is elevated and their vibration is raised, their third eye can open up sometimes. So I've had multiple genuine healings happen from this music, from in person and from people listening to a recording of it, because the harmonic alignment and the intent and the way that it's structured leads people through something that actually brings their whole being into a type of harmony sometimes they've never experienced before.
Yeah, it's amazing what you're saying, and it's even more amazing if people can really benefit from it, which you're claiming they are. And I myself have heard and listened to different type of solfeggio tones and frequencies, and have noticed for myself, for me, that my vibration has raised and things like that. After the commercial break, Julian, I really want to jump into the golden ratio, frequencies, ancient Egypt, things like that, because what we're talking about and talking and explaining is ancient information. This is nothing that
Yes.
Julian made up, and you're coming in with these celestial sounds, and it's ooh, or it's not
Right.
anything like that. What you're portraying and bringing forth is old information, ancient knowledge, the music of the sounds of the spheres that many great scholars have taught, and ancient Egypt and many civilizations used to do many things in terms of even moving building blocks for building the Great Pyramid, which some talk about having sound and vibration. So I want to dive into that. We're going to take a commercial break in just a minute. And before we do, we have about 2 minutes left. Julian, talk about, if you can, your celestial music. What is the best way for someone to listen to it? Would you recommend they do it on a headphones? Would you recommend they do it in a group of meditation where there's 5 people? Or what's a good way for listeners to experience a celestial music?
Well, sure. I'll give a little plug to my record label. It's associated with the New Earth movement, New Earth Music, and it's Spirited Records. And people can just look up Julian Forest, Spirited Records, name of the album's Arcanum if they want to get a hold of it. A lot of people are having great experiences in group meditations. I've been meeting with people, and we've been listening to the music on CD, for example, in a meditation together, and it does heighten the effect in a group, I'm finding. But people also have magical experiences alone. So there's all kinds of formats that people can tune into for that, and it's somewhat, of course, going to be individual, depending on whether they want to go to deep meditation alone or so on and so forth.
Excellent. So we're going to take a commercial break here in about 30 seconds. So everyone, hang on to your seats. When we get back, I want to jump into the dynamics about it, ancient Egypt, the secrets. So hang on right there. Julian Forest, celestial music, right back.
Even the Declaration of Independence was made on hemp paper. Thomas Jefferson had hemp fields. Let me tell you all the things organically grown hemp yields. Jack Herring tried to tell us the news. We can
off the moon and back.
Will you watch the world burn from your jet? Or plant a tree on your spaceship? We'll never find another home, but we can feel the wind blow. Will you watch the world burn from your jet? Or plant a tree on your spaceship? We'll never find another home, but we can feel the wind blow.
Music on the radio.
All right, welcome back to the show. You're listening to Starseed Radio. Check out starseedradio.com for the latest news and updates. And we are joined by a very special guest talking about celestial music. He's an amazing music artist, Julian Forest, as well as what is behind celestial music, what is behind frequencies, vibrations. Julian, thank you for joining us. When we talk about music of the spheres and when we talk about celestial music, give us a history lesson, if you will, of the music of the spheres. When we talk about Plato and ancient Egypt and all of this, where does this music of the spheres come from? Where do these sounds, vibrations, solfeggio tones, what is all of that? What does it do to us? And and how old is this?
Sure, and I'll elaborate on that for a bit for you and give kind of a structure to it. So, probably take about 5 minutes or so, okay?
Excellent, thank you.
Basically, it's kind of touch on what you said. I really appreciate it. You talked about the music of the spheres, so I'm going to kind of start with that and go back. We've all heard of Pythagoras for the most part, one of the most famous names in history. People have no idea what he was really about for the most part because they say, oh yeah, the Pythagorean theorem, I've heard of that. I know who Pythagoras is. They have no idea. If you really, really look further and further, you find out that there's an entire school and that Plato was a Pythagorean because he went back to reconstruct Pythagorean knowledge at the early part of his career and found disciples like Archytas and Philolaus who he got manuscripts from that were Pythagorean. So coming to the music of the spheres, they weren't kidding when they talked about this stuff. They weren't just making something up that was just poetic. It happens to be very poetic as well, but they would say things like there's geometry in the humming of the strings and music in the whirling of the spheres. Well, they were really very serious about this. There is geometry in the humming of the strings, and the planets happen to be a musical construct. The solar system, the entire universe, and everything has a harmonic basis. That means that it's living music is what it really means. So the entire universe actually can be shown. And so in my journey, I actually went back and figured out how all that really actually works. It really, meant studying Kepler, Pythagoras, Plato, and endless other sources and getting to the bottom of that. So I'd like to invite anyone that's interested to look up Bode's Law. Bode's Law is an accepted scientific law that gives a simple doubling for the spaces of the planets, starting with 0, 3, 6, 12, 24, 48, 96. And that's an octave principle from the beginning as a substructure. But then you add 4 to each one. So if you're looking for the proportional distance, roughly, of the first planet from the sun, and you add 0 and 4 together, you get 4, which is Mercury. Okay, and then you take the next number, which is 3, in that sequence, you add 4 to it, and you get the distance for the Earth. Take the next one over, Venus, and then you take the Earth, and you keep doing that. Add 4 to 0, 3, 6, 12, 24, 48, 96. And then you take that and you put it all aside, study some music theory, get to understand what basic harmonic intervals are, and you can actually see that the Bode's Law intervals are harmonic intervals that make harmonies in music. And so it's super, super close, but it doesn't really just stop there. Fibonacci numbers basically describe the logarithm of how a fretboard is built, for example, okay? And so if you look at a fretboard on a guitar and you say, okay, yeah, the spacings start large and they get smaller and smaller, but there's a proportion they go smaller and smaller by to make those notes where they're at. And that proportion is, once again, a Fibonacci type sequence. All right. So moving forward, Pythagoras was always famous for the fact that he showed that simple ratios equate to the sounds that we hear. So if you take half of the string, you're going to get the octave. If you take 1/3 of the string, you're going to get what's called the fifth. If you take 1/4 of the string, you get another octave. And those harmonics are that little bell-like sound that you hear where people are playing a guitar, then all of a sudden these little bell chimes come out. They're lightly touching the string and getting the harmonic that existed there the whole time by interrupting the string but not pressing it down. So inside of those notes, the entire time, is infinite harmonics. They're really actually there, and the note is an illusion. So to understand the music of the spheres, and as above, so below applies this perfectly. And Protagoras wrote, man is the measure of all things. Now, they got this knowledge from the Egyptians. The Egyptians are where Plato, Pythagoras, Thales, Democritus, every great Greek philosopher just about that you can think of had went to Egypt and or India to study. So what they're really giving us is actually an extract of what the Egyptian priesthood had. So when we look at the pyramids, the temples, and the culture of Egypt and how renowned they were in the ancient world, it starts to make more sense that the Greeks, as great as they were really still students of something that was much more ancient. And so basically that's a lot of information, but what it kind of condenses down to is our entire Western tradition that we got through the Greeks actually has antecedents in Egypt as well as Babylon. They were getting all kinds of massive astronomical information in early Greek history that they were digesting so that they understood a lot of high astronomy that most people don't even realize they knew, by the way. So basically the music of the spheres is real. That's kind of the message here. The atomic table of elements is a harmonic spiral. It's not a block the way that's been represented to us. And so if you combine all these things together, the matter that we live in is harmonic and can be shown to be so. The planets are a harmonic construct. The human body is a harmonic construct. Just look at Leonardo da Vinci's Man in the Circle and see the grid, the 4 spacings, and where the hands touch inside the geometries, and it all starts to add up. So basically, at that particular point, if you start to put all this together and put it in its simplest terms, there's basically some simple underlying harmonies that we consider beautiful and musical that are underlying why we have an experience here. There's a hidden harmony behind things that actually makes it so that everything can work. And so I would recommend to anyone to say, for example, read A Life of Pythagoras by I.M. Blikus, for example. Go to that one and take a look closely at Plato's history and look at the Timaeus. Instead of the typical dialogues, which are great, go right to the Timaeus, which is the origin of the Atlantis legend, and see that he has the 26,000-year cycle of the equinoxes, where you see it spins on a wobble and comes back around. Plato knew all about that. Come back to the same zodiac sign and started it on 26,000 years later. He says that the heart pumps the blood, gives a complete system of atomic physics based on geometry. It's actually a workable system. And all the harmonic ratios, they're all in the Timaeus, but most people don't read the Timaeus. They read the dialogues because that's what they're given at the schools. So once we see Plato as a Pythagorean, which is factual, and see Pythagoras in a deeper light, then you understand why Kepler was a Pythagorean, why Galileo was very aware of Pythagoras, and why Isaac Newton was also very fond of Pythagoras. So Pythagoras is really kind of the secret, most powerful influence in history in many ways. And so that's a little bit about that. You back there, Jonah?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. It's a good history lesson, and I urge listeners out there to really dig into this, what Julian and I are talking about. Do your own research. I always say that in the show, Julian. Do your due diligence. Don't listen to what we say or I say. I've never learned like that.
Exactly, right?
Yeah. Don't listen to what I'm saying. Learn what we're saying. Do your own research. Be inquisitive. Dig into that, because as I've done over the years since my awakening about 6-7 years ago, I've learned so much of this to be truth, and so much of it not allowed out there, wanted out there, because it answers so many amazing questions about who we are, where we came from, what is this about, how they build those pyramids, blah, 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 on and on and on. It's just amazing. And down the rabbit hole you go. And thank God I jumped down the rabbit hole, because it's opened me up to just so much information and understanding about even my own life and things I've experienced. It's amazing. Let me ask you this, Julian. Where do you see music going over the next 10, 20 years, now that we have this reemergence of this secret ancient information and tones and this real movement towards sustainability? Do you see big concerts happening like Music of the Spheres? Do you see people consciously, bringing together these types of sounds and frequencies in other modalities, like in commercials on TV and movies? I mean, where do you see celestial tones and this type of music and frequencies in the near future, and also the farther on? What do you see happening?
Yeah, so well put, Jonah. Thank you for expressing it that way. And I agree with you. There really is a genuine, huge awakening happening in the world. And more than any other time in my life, I'm running into people that are waking up, and they're really genuinely looking at sustainability, like you said. They're looking into ancient knowledge. They're trying to recalibrate the fluff that were inherited and bypass it much more quicker than I've ever seen at any point. And so that is a very real force in the world right now, and it's only going to get bigger because it's so widespread at this point, and so throughout society in so many different ways. So what I see is now people are very hungry for sacred geometry. They're hungry for sacred harmonics. They want to have sacred experiences. And, I've been very surprised. I spent a couple of years going to festivals, Jonah, and I went to a lot of them. I got to know all the people that run the big festivals and stuff. But sometimes up in the DJ booth, you look at it, it's laser beams playing upon sacred geometry art installations, programmed to make sacred geometry on the art with installations. There's someone up there giving a shout out in the DJ booth to sacred geometry. And there's a few times I was like, is this really happening? Did I just see that? The same thing that I was calling harmonic proportion so long ago when I dove in and figured it out. And it is. And so what I see is that it's really taking hold on people's minds, and more often I'm seeing people actually taking the genuine time to study. So what this is going to yield is a whole new reality for possibly even lead to a planetary renaissance, because we can all communicate easier, travel easier.
There you
There's
go.
language
I love it.
translators.
Planetary
Yeah.
Renaissance.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
That's
what my friends Charles Gilchrist and J. Gabriel Cavazza are on board with as well. It's like, hey, he likes to say, for example, Jay, a planetary renaissance of consciousness is the way he phrases it. Those kinds of things, And so, I think that what's going to happen is he kind of gave me some visuals when you asked me the questions. It's like I can see entire new types of venues being created that are holographic, laser projected, synchronous, complete devices, the whole building around sacred geometry and sacred sound and make correlations during real concerts that are immersive. I see things like that happening.
Now, if people listening to the show want to experience celestial music or want to hear it or whatever, what are some ways people could do it? I know you have your music label, so talk about that. Talk about some of your projects,
Sure.
your collaborations you're doing. Give the listeners some viewpoints and also some reference points on where can they Google, where can they hear some of this music, how can they find out more information?
Sure. One of the things I would say is Eolia, for example, said that what I'm doing right now is the new music, and that's kind of his take on it. So it's a genre that I've created is a common perspective, and so I have a hard time giving other references because I can't really think of a lot of music I truly call celestial in the same way as what I'm doing. So I'll just give a few things that point to places you can find me. I'm easy to find on Google and YouTube, and I just advise people if you type in Julian Forest musician, you'll get much better results than if you just type in Julian Forest or Julian Forest guitarist even. And, there's all kinds of things that are out there you can come across. I've starred in 3 movies, done a bunch of interviews, been on a bunch of radio networks and stuff like that. But I would say look up Julian Forest Celestial Visions, or go through my Julian Forest musician page on Google and pick things from there. And, of course, go to Spirited Records. They've been very supportive. They design a lot of my artwork and stuff for me and promote me frequently. And have a very good relationship with them. And you can hear the whole album for free if you want to, if you go there. And then you can download a higher digital copy. And a lot of people do like to listen to it through headphones. So those are some of the main ways to find me is just to Google Julian Forest musician is one really easy way.
Excellent. So when we talk about also the music of the spheres, ancient Egypt, what are some good maybe books or reference points as well people could check out when you talk about like Plato teaching music of the spheres and things like that? Have you had any instrumental books or movies or documentaries you've seen that you could recommend as well for people?
Absolutely. That's such a great question, Jonah. One of the biggest things I would say is if you're going to get one compendium that's really easy off the shelf, that's amazing and is entertaining and accessible, but shows all this stuff in a true way, because we've got to watch out there on YouTube, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of stuff that it's kind of presented that sounds neat, but they haven't really put it together in a way where they know the music theory or they really know geometry or whatever. But there's a guy named Michael Schneider that I can recommend with no holding back. Constructing the Universe from 1 to 10. This guy's a real architect, and he also knew all the music theory that you would need, and he also put it together. He's the only person besides myself that I ever saw do that. I went through that same process long before I got that book, and I was really happy that someone had taken the time and made a compendium for it. So Constructing the Universe from 1 to 10. Now, if you really want to go completely, depending on how studious you may be, if you really want to go overboard and dive in deep, get a hold of The Secret Doctrine by H.P. Blavatsky and start following up on all the references. If you're not familiar with Hermes Trismegistus, get every Hermetic literature bit that you can and study it. Find out about the alchemists and the Gnostics and the transcendental magicians through time and the temple builders in India. If you start delving into The Secret Doctrine, if you really want to get to the deeper secrets, that's the best compendium that you can get off the shelf, unless you're part of an esoteric order that has something else.
Excellent, excellent. It's always good, and I like to give out reference points because, we want people to learn and really dig into this stuff. So with everything you're doing, Julian, you have upcoming projects, collaborations. Talk about some of the future stuff you're going to be involved with, who you're working with, upcoming events, and also some future projects that you would like to see happen. And if there's any listeners out there, investors, people that want to support your movement, people that really want to learn and get more involved, let's talk about that. Talk about some future projects. What would you like to see happen? Where do you see celestial music going? How big and how fast can you expand it if you had people helping and getting involved with really a movement towards bringing back this ancient sound and frequency and vibration?
Yeah, and you know what, Jonah, that's so well put. And that is actually what's happening. I'm involved and, kind of advising, if you will, a movement towards that, as well as the planetary renaissance. So I'm involved in a lot of things, and it's very challenging at times in a good way, and I really enjoy that. And of course, from time to time, I might face a little bit of opposition from, the kind of standing social structure of things. Most of the time, I don't. I just go right past it. But every once in a while, you come across a little something that you have to overcome. But for the most part, what's happening is there's an esoteric center in Norway that's being developed. And I named it, and I'm one of the chief advisors. And just recently, for example, Robert Schock and John Anthony West went there to speak, and I was invited to speak there and perform as well. And so what we're doing with them is we're developing the grounds so it'll have a real, actual auditorium, kind of based on what I alluded to earlier with the full immersion. And it'll be called the Arcanum Theater, which is the name of my main album. And also, too, there's going to be a knowledge arc that's created there. So I'm actually working on the book and the materials right now that will be released. It'll be a digest of that thing, but in the actual center itself is going to be housed a full harmonic arc of knowledge. So anyone that wants to access it has access to it with very clear points of how to get there, what to look at, what step to take, so that they can actually learn how to interact with the celestial music or create a building that's a harmonic structure, because all the knowledge that they need will actually be in this knowledge arc that we're creating. So that's a big project for me that's going to be ongoing. And also, I've really been enjoying the sound healings that I'm doing, and I want to do more of those. And I'm working on a new album right now. That's another big project. And that's something that is going to be recorded by Aeoli himself. So he's going to actually help me with the recording process. And so those are kind of the main projects that are on my mind right now. What I would love to see for the world in general is that it's like Michael Schneider did in that book, Constructing the Universe. He made it entertaining and fun, but all the depth is still in there. So I'm really looking at trying to, keep that process going in the world where people can access it, but it's not overwhelming.
Excellent, Julian. So we have about 6-7 minutes left, and what I'd like to do is, if you can, pick maybe a song or something that you've composed, or one of your first awakening type of celestial musics, and just talk about a little bit about the song or composition, maybe one of your original pieces, and where that inspiration came from. You told the story of how you came to be. Talk about some of the actual experiences you had, if you will, maybe a very profound experience you had, and then right after that, the information, the download came to you to produce a certain track. Then people may have a reference point that they can look for that certain song or track, and then knowing the history behind it. That'd be really awesome.
You're so great to be on a show with, John. You just asked the very best inclusive questions.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, here's what really happened is throughout my life, as I kind of alluded to in various different places, I would go into the state where I would access the celestial realms. But it wasn't just that I was hearing the music in the beginning at all. It's actually actual planes of consciousness that are far beyond the earth, where your inner eye sees these angelic realms. Now, these are not angels with wings. They don't look like anything on the planet. This is one of the reasons that I not the only one, but one of the reasons I realized early on that this was a real type of reality of its own, but it's made of light and color. And so these angelic beings, I wish I could describe them, but instead I'll just say that their movements are magnificent, and there's different planes of them. And on some of the planes, these beautiful beings, sound would correspond exactly with the rapidity, as well as the type of movement that they were doing, as well as the colors. And it was synonymous, and they were interacting together. So there's this music that I heard, but it would happen like in a half awake, half asleep state sometimes. Sometimes I would be wide awake. Sometimes I would just be kind of daydreaming, the different variations, but I was slipped over into that for different reasons throughout my life. But then at a certain point in my life, something changed because I started studying meditation, and I started realizing how to calm my body down and think about the third eye and how to open it. And I would do these visualizations of the Platonic solids where I learned how to control them rotating in space like they're made of laser light, and change the color, change the position of the room that they were in, what angle I'm looking at them at. This came to me as like a divine mind initiation. It wasn't anything that anyone told me, but I just knew that I was supposed to do this exercise with my mind. What it did is allowed me to gain control of the mind stuff, if you will, or the astral light, and to navigate it as opposed to just dream, okay? So one particular time in my life, I went to a very deep meditation, Jonah, and I had activated my third eye already, and I had already learned how to control my mind. So by controlling my mind, when my third eye completely blew open, and it was like the whole universe was coming through me, with my control of my thought energy, I could navigate the various different celestial planes. And so this particular very pivotal experience was before I figured out how to do the celestial music. And I was in this state, this meditation, for probably somewhere around 10 hours. And when I came out of it, and while I was in it, I knew that I was altered forever. I was literally imbued with the celestial plane music and the celestial energy, because it wasn't a fleeting experience. I was in control of it, and it was extended. And so I did a few other times for some several hours after that, but that was the main pivotal experience that changed me forever. So if you go to a composition called Timepiece, and it's a play on words, it's Timepeace, like a timepiece, like a fine Swiss watch with all the gears, because it's intricate, but the word piece is inserted there instead. And you look at Timepiece and you listen to that really carefully in a reverie, you'll definitely get a taste of the celestial plane music, especially towards the end of it, where it's got this certain ethereal kind of wafting and these overlays going on, even though it's only one track. Timepiece will take you to the celestial planes if you're receptive.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And just so the listeners know, so we're talking about music of the spheres, celestial music, what that is, what that means, and the history behind it. Because really, to understand what Julian has been talking about during the show, I urge people again to really dig into the history of music of the spheres and solfeggio tones and the golden ratio. And even though you may not understand it, I'm just saying check it out so you know that it's real and you know that it's been around for a long time, and there's lots of science and data backing up everything that we're talking about, and that's very important. So Julian, thank you so much again for coming on the show and for all your service to the planet and your work you're doing. And what's your website one more time, please?
The easiest way to find me is to Google or go to the Facebook bar and type Julian Forest Musician, because that's the one that I know that everyone can find without memorizing the web address or writing it down. Julian Forest Musician.
Thank you so much, Julian Forest. Excellent. Thank you for listening to Starseed Radio.
Thanks so much, Jonah.
Well, thank you, Thor. Have an amazing day. See you tomorrow. Starseed Radio.
Bye.
Atlantic mystery, Atlantis, white from history, the truth about the